That is the rear swing arm on the 955i with the hub and everything else removed. So I've taken the hub out, and yesterday night, or yesterday afternoon rather, I took it down to the local garage and asked them about the bearings, about getting the bearings swapped. Let's have a look at the hub itself. So this is the hub from the Sprint 955i. Okay, so I took this down to my local garage. I asked them to swap the bearings. I had new bearings that I bought off eBay. I think it's INA bearings or something. I think they're like 55 quid or whatever. So I asked the garage about swapping them. The guy checked them. He ran his finger around inside, span the bearings around a bit, and the same with the sealed bearings. So these have two bearings, right? They have like a roller bearing on this side, and they have like sealed bearings like you would get in a front wheel, in like down in the other side. Okay, so he span all the bearings around and he said they're absolutely silky smooth. He says there's no way they're original. I told him that the bike is a W-Reg 2000 with about 80,000 miles on the clock, and he said they're definitely not original bearings. They've been replaced at some point. He couldn't really quite estimate exactly when they would be replaced, but kind of from what he was saying, it sounded like probably relatively recently, so they're kind of probably new-ish bearings. He doesn't reckon they need replaced at all. He said he would replace them if I wanted to, but I reckoned if I just got the hub back from him there and then, I could start building the bike up. So basically what I've done this morning is I've cleaned it up a little bit more, and I've packed the roller bearings with the grease. Obviously the other bearings are sealed, so they don't really need grease. They've got some old grease on, but as much as I could, I tried to get down inside with the blue roll. I blasted it with lots of this stuff, Motip industrial cleaner, which I've been using for everything on the bike and seems to be really good. It just kind of dissolves stuff and the grunge just runs away, so I really like that cleaner. So then what I've done is I've got fresh grease. I've got my Napa car grease, which is quite new, got quite recently, and I packed that roller bearing with the grease, with the nitrile gloves, and just mashed it into the. Got these bits as well. These are different kind of bits that are all part of the rear hub assembly. I don't know what you call this bit. It's kind of like a funny sort of flat. Actually, I know what it is. It's the caliper mount, so the caliper goes on that. But we'll see that when we put it all back together. And that's held on with this circlip, which I've also cleaned. And then there's various other flanges and washers and whatnot that go. Some of them go on this side. Some of them go in here. I've also cleaned this up a bit. This is the cush drive. This has sealed bearings in it, and I've basically done what he did with this. I've kind of like span it around a bit with my fingers, and he says if it doesn't feel gritty, it's probably a good bearing. Okay, now obviously this doesn't take the weight of the bike either, so this is not quite as critical as the wheel bearings, but it's still quite important because it is the final drive. This is the rear wheel spindle. Got thread on either end. One end for the wheel nut and one end for the cush drive nut. These are the splines. I've cleaned all this up, got degreased it all, blasted it with a degreaser, scrubbed it with the blue roll, got it as clean as I can. I've gone around with the Napa grease and I put fresh grease on all these splines and everything, so it all goes together nicely. So that's basically it. So I'm now ready to start building this back up, so I'm going to start putting it together next. And I've got my hub here, and I'm going to put the hub back in here. Okay, so that turns. So I'm probably gonna, because I'm using a new chain and sprockets, I'm probably gonna want it something like that to begin with. Ready to tension the chain, so it's kind of, the chain's as loose as possible to begin with, and then just put a wee bit of tension on it. So that's the hub back in. So we'll go on like that. Okay. Right, so that's the circlip back on there. Took a real fight to get that circlip on. Kind of struggled with it for some minutes. What tends to happen is if we've got the circlip pliers like that and I'm holding it as wide as I can get it, it's really difficult to actually get it around this thing because it's just really a bit on the small side and it doesn't want to go. And what tends to happen is when I was trying to push it on, it's pushing the whole hub through out the other way kind of thing, and then you try and push it back and it pushes this bracket off, so it's really awkward. So in the end I managed to do it by holding the circlip pliers in my right hand, holding this hub into the swing arm with my other hand, and holding this in place sort of with my thumb like that, and also using my thumb to kind of press the circlip in around it. So here's the spindle, and that goes through there like that, and put that on there and slide it onto the splines. So that's now in place. The spacer's already in. That's got a bit of grease in it. Dished washer, which the Haynes manual says make a note of which way around it goes when you take it apart, and of course I forgot to do that, didn't I? But what I've done is I've kind of examined it, and I can see it's a bit worn around the inside. It's more worn around the inside than it is around the outside, so I'm pretty sure this nut goes on like that, which means that it will go concave side facing in and the convex side facing out against the nut. So that's the way I'm putting it back in. Hopefully that's correct. If it's not, I guess my final drive will explode on the motorway and kill me, but hopefully that won't happen. I've now got the hub assembly all put back together. So we've got the spindle, brake disc, cush drive, hub, caliper bracket, all of that's in place. I've got the nut on here holding it, and I've got this clamp bolt here holding the hub, holding the whole thing together. So I've not done anything up tight at this point. It's just put back together loosely. It'll be getting tightened up and torqued to the correct torque according to Haynes manual at some point, but I'm not going to do that yet because I've got to get the chain and sprockets on and the caliper in place and what have you. So the next job I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the caliper on the caliper bracket. Bolt this back on. So that's the caliper on, just kind of hand tight, and the hub in. So far so good. Okay, and that spins quite nicely. I'm going to fit this new JT sprocket. So I've got the bolts, I've given them a good clean up, and I've got the socket and the Allen key, and again I'm just going to put it all together finger tight for now, and then we'll torque it all later. So the bolt has a little flange around there. Right, so I've got the Allen key on the swing arm side, the bolt coming through from the back, and then the nut on the outside. I'm just going to put these on just hand tight for the moment. 6 of them. Just put them on finger tight to begin with. Right, so that's basically all of them in place and tightened up sort of hand tight. So we've got the hub, we've got the sprocket, we've got the caliper. So making some progress. Next thing is put the front sprocket and the chain on. New JT sprocket, the front sprocket that I've got to go on the bike, and this is the old sprocket, which is old and rusty and horrendous, And when I first got the new sprocket out of the packet, I noticed that it's got these big thick sort of rubber spacers actually attached to the sprocket. That one doesn't have that, and I thought, oh dear, it's not going to fit, but I've tried it on the bike. It does fit, it does go on. So there we go. So what I'm going to do next, I've cleaned up these bits, the nut and this special kind of washer, as much as I can, and also the bits to put the rear wheel on. Clean them all up and given them a bit of the grease. So we're now ready to put those on the bike. Okay. The Haynes manual says you're supposed to use a new lock washer, one of these. I don't have a new lock washer, so I'm just going to have to use the old one. Hopefully that'll do. So I'm just going to put that on there. Then we'll put the nut on. And again, I'm not torquing any of this. I'm not using torque wrench at this stage. I'm just sort of doing everything kind of finger tight just to get it all assembled. And then I'll go around with the torque wrench afterwards and do everything with that. So I ran into a bit of a problem here, and that's that I cannot get this thing to go into neutral. No matter what I try, I've spent quite a bit of time fiddling around with this gear linkage mechanism. Part of the problem I think might be that I can't get this bolt to go in. It's kind of jammed up and it won't go. I don't know if I've cross-threaded it or what's happened, but it doesn't want to go in. Starting to get a bit rounded off, so it's really difficult to get at. You can't get a socket or anything in there. It's really awkward. And the difficulty is I kind of really need it. I wanted to get it in neutral so that I can put the chain on, because obviously to put the chain on I'm going to pull it on from the back, I'm going to pull it through, and I'm going to pull it around the front sprocket. But if the front sprocket is solid, it's in gear, I can't pull it around. So that's kind of making things a bit awkward, kind of holding things up a bit. Plus I kind of really need to get it into neutral as well. I've googled around this problem, I looked on YouTube. There's all sorts of people talking about like gear shift techniques and how to tap it with your boot and all this sort of business, and it's not really very helpful because there's something funny going on here mechanically. I know it should get neutral because when I bought the bike it was in neutral. The guy that delivered it pushed it from the van to my driveway and I pushed it into my garage. So I know that it can get neutral. I know this for sure because of that. But I can't get neutral now, and I just, I've tried holding the clutch in and all the rest of it and jiggling it up and down. I've been up and down the box and up and down and up and down, and it just isn't giving me neutral. So that's a bit of a problem. So I want to try and get the chain on so I can make some progress with the thing, right? So what I've done is I've got some zip ties, cable ties, whatever, and I've used them to hold the clutch in like that. So with the clutch held in, I can actually turn the sprocket. It's a bit harder than normal because I'm turning, like, I was going to say half the gearbox, but it's really the whole gearbox. I'm turning the gearbox and like half the clutch, I suppose. But it does actually turn, so I can use that to get the chain on. So I'm going to put the chain on next, and then I'm going to have another go at getting it into neutral. Right, so this is my chain. It's a JT 530 108 link, the right one for the bike, hopefully. So I'm going to have a go at fitting it now. Alright, lovely fresh chain straight out of the packet. And get it around the front sprocket, and then turn the front sprocket. Right, so I've got one end of the chain, the other end of the chain now. So just pull that around like that. Okay. Now just keep going around. Okay, so let's go around a bit more. Okay, so that's the chain kind of on, sort of. Need to get the link clip and put that together. Now about midday on Saturday, and I've been doing lots of work on the bike, and I've been running into all kinds of problems, and
not managing to solve very much, but I've kind of made some progress getting it back together again. As you can see, it's a bit more built up. So I've got the hub in, I've got the cush drive on, I've got the spindle in, I've got the caliper on, I've got the chain and sprockets, front and rear sprockets, and the chain on, um, and I've got the wheel on, and I've got the caliper. What am I talking about? The brake hose connected up with the brake light sensor thingamajig, all that done. So it's kind of like together, but stuff's not torqued yet. I still need to torque everything. So that's another job, but it's kind of just put back together. So what problems I've been running into. So the big problem is I cannot get neutral. I had the clutch in, and I've been up and down the box, and I just can't get it. So I don't know. I know it gets neutral because it was in neutral when it was delivered, when the guy pushed it off the van, but I cannot get neutral, and I messed about with it. I've spent too long messing about with it. I don't know why it's not going into neutral, but it just isn't. It's like a press type. The Master Link is like a press type that came with the JT chain. I really wanted the clip type, but it didn't have one of those, so I called the bike dealers. I said, do you sell a clip type, right? Because I found them on eBay, but I was hoping to get one today. Spoke to the bike dealers. They said you can't legally use the clip type anymore on the road because they're not safe and it won't pass an MOT. So basically, I think they said anything over 500cc, you have to have this press type rivet link. Okay, so that's ideally I would have liked the clip one because I used to use the clip ones back in the day, and it meant that you could unclip them and take the chain off to clean it, but you can't do that anymore. It's not allowed. So it's got to be a pressed one, which is fine. I would just do that, but then I've discovered that I don't have like the right tool to do it because I've not had a bike for a while, and so I can't find a good tool to do it. And so I've been trying to put it together using like vice grips and G clamps and stuff, and it's not really. It's kind of somewhat together. Like if I get a flat blade screwdriver and a pry against that, it's held in place. It's pressed together enough for that, but it's not finished. So I'm going to have to go and buy one of those on eBay, get it delivered, finish that next weekend. So that's one of next weekend's jobs. Still got to torque everything, but I'm going to leave torquing things until I've got the bike a bit more together because it's all kind of on stands at the moment, and I think it'll be easier to torque it when it's like on the ground kind of thing. So I'm going to leave torquing stuff. That was what the other problem was. It was the chain guard. My chain guard is broken, so the bit down here broke off when I was taking it off. So and there's only one other bolt. There's that bolt and there's that bolt. It's basically two bolts that hold the thing on. It's not like a whole lot of bolts, so you can't sort of get away with not having one. So I'm going to have to get a new chain guard. So that's another thing I'm going to have to buy. So at the front end, when I was working on the back end, I managed to knock the bike off the front paddock stand. Luckily, I had the spindle screwed in, kind of like, well, I think it's in about an inch or something. There's enough to hold it. I landed on the blocks of wood, and then I couldn't get the paddock stand out because it was stuck under this plank. So I ended up having to saw the plank off with a bow saw. It's not very often that you use a bow saw when you're working on a motorcycle, but there you go, these things happen. So the next thing is to have a go at the front wheel, changing the wheel bearings, discs and all that. Right, so another problem to add to my list of problems is the front wheel bearings. Not that front wheel, that's the old front wheel, but the front wheel that's got the tyre mounted on it. I've had to take that to the garage to get the bearings changed because I can't, the tube thing inside, I can't manage to move it enough to get the screwdriver onto the edge of the bearing to actually tap the bearing out, so I'm kind of stuck with that. I was struggling with it for a while. I had it indoors, I was doing it in the spare room, but I can't get the bearings changed myself, so I've taken it down to the garage. They're going to do it and they're going to give me a call back through the week when it's done, and I'll go and pick it up, and then basically I'll end up putting the front wheel on probably next weekend at this rate, or maybe sometime in the evening through the week after work. I don't know, we'll see. So while they're doing that, all I can really do is other stuff, bits and pieces. So the calipers were off the fork legs in order to get the wheel off.
So what I've done is I've just put them on temporarily so that I can get the pads out and check whether the pistons are seized. So these are the old pads. They're a bit worn, not crazy worn, but kind of worn. So they're now out. So the first bit of real sort of good news that I've had today is that the calipers are not seized. I started having a go at them with like spanners and stuff, just putting a spanner in as a lever and just levering the pistons back into the caliper. Some of them went easily, some of them I was struggling with, and I thought, damn it, I'm going to have to rebuild the calipers, which is like another job to do. But eventually I managed to get them all pushed back in, and obviously that's put my brake fluid level up a bit, so the brake fluid level is now quite high. I can't find my syringe to get any of that out, which is why I put the cloth around there. But anyway, so the calipers are not seized, the pistons are all pushed back in, just about flush with the inside surface of the calipers. So the next job is to put the brake pads in, the EBC brake pads. They're organic brake pads, which I think means they're supposed to be healthier to eat, and they're supposed to taste better, but I've not actually eaten them yet, so I don't know how they taste, but I'm going to fit them now anyway. I'm just going to do this sort of hand tight. Well, kind of finger tight. Right, so that's pads in, shims in. So far so good. Now we just need to do the other side. Okay, so that's that, those pads in as well, and that's kind of the pinned up, finger tight. So again, it's just something else just to be torqued when I get to that stage.